we've put him in this kind of like heavenly place. But man, he was a rebel against the religious influences and the political influences. He stood against both.
Welcome to the Innovative Church Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Bryant. In every episode, we bring in guests who will inspire, encourage you to be more effective in your mission field. Well, I'm excited today to have on the podcast Dr. Mike Slaughter. How are you doing, Mike?
I'm doing well, man. It's an honor, to be with you.
Well, I have folks who are eager to innovate and create to make a difference in the world. And I would love for people, just for a minute, if they don't know who Mike Slaughter is, I have looked up to you for years. You guys were in Ginghamsburg, Ohio, tiny town, and somehow reached and grew to 4,500 people. Those of us at Mosaic were coming out to learn from you. You guys were kind of at the forefront of media and ministry. Talk about your heart behind innovation.
Well, I think, it's both and. By 2000, the church growth movement was huge, and I knew small groups were a big part of that. We had 400 small groups, and I knew small groups were the heart of discipleship. And so once a month, we had small group leaders training, and we really emphasized the importance of relationships, and discipleship. And the discipleship was the key. And the biggest part of that was for people to discover their spiritual gifts. And basically, I was discipled in college in Campus Crusade for Christ.
Yeah.
And I used that kind of same model. I called it celebration, the big group, cell, right?
Yeah.
The discipleship group, and call, discover your gifts and serve. And so really what happened at Ginghamsburg, I emphasized that we're not saved to get to heaven, but to get heaven into the earth.
That's right.
And so what happened in Ginghamsburg, Dayton is really Ginghamsburg is outside of Dayton, Ohio. It was a blue collar community that was really based on the automobile industry. And man, when that went belly up, there was a lot of poverty. And so we did food pantries, we did Jobs for Life programs, we did GED programs. We have a counseling center with 15 state licensed counselors,
wow,
a psychiatrist, a Christian psychiatrist. In Covington, Ohio, we have a warehouse with used medical equipment for the uninsured and underinsured. We have 3 men's resident recovery homes, one for opioid addicted women. So we got into a lot of things of what we believed Jesus would do, to heal the sick, to set the oppressed free. So, I think it's not just about saving souls. It's about setting people free.
Yeah.
I think that's what we're about.
Absolutely.
Demonstrating the kingdom of God. And so in 2000, I wrote this book, Unlearning Church, because I said, here, we got 2,000 people come to worship. How many of these people are following Jesus? In the New Testament, Eric, 87 times Jesus says, follow me. 0 times does he say, worship me.
Wow.
And so we put so much emphasis on the 0 times.
Yeah.
And I would stand up there and worship and say, you get no credit for being here today. It's what you do out there.
Yeah. That's so beautiful. I love the way your church really tried to live out the beauty of the gospel by meeting needs, physical, emotional, social, real needs that people had. In the midst of that, they were getting a glimpse of this new kingdom. You've written many different books. 2019, you talked about the revolutionary kingdom, if I remember right.
Yeah.
Talk about the rebel Jesus. Give us a little bit of what you shared in that book and what you really shared as a senior pastor for all those years.
We've put him in this kind of like heavenly place. But man, he was a rebel against the religious influences and the political influences. He stood against both. I mean, the religious orthodox of his day, he wasn't a line with them,
Right.
and against the Roman political influences. It was really a political statement he made when he said, render under Caesar's what is Caesar's and unto God what is God's. What he was saying is that Israel was God's. That was a statement that, why he was an enemy of Rome in that sense. But at the same time, why the Pharisees wanted to kill Jesus was he was going against the law of God in their minds. It's kind of what we do in fundamentalism is Bible idolatry, is we worship the Bible. Like Jesus said, you look at the scriptures and worship the scriptures rather than the one they point to.
Right.
No, that's the map. That's not the God.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's the same today. This Christian nationalism, it's a pharisaical kind of thing. And there is both amongst liberals and conservatives biblical illiteracy today.
Yeah.
I wrote on Facebook, I paraphrased it, but 10 verses, it didn't look like verses, it's just I wrote it, about what the Bible said about immigrants or foreigners. And I got all this ugly thing. You need to read the Bible. And then I wrote back the verses that it came from.
This is from the Bible.
This is from the Bible. And then I put what Jesus said about love your enemy and all this kind of stuff. And some of the people who were from my church said, well, that's too weak for today. No, that's the Sermon on the Mount.
Right.
That is our Constitution.
Yes.
That's the Sermon on the Mount is the Constitution of the Kingdom of God. Now, I'm going to say this, and some people aren't going to like it, but from the time I made a commitment to Jesus as Lord, now this is back during the Jesus movement, and again, I'm 73, I have not said the Pledge of Allegiance because my allegiance is to the King of the Kingdom. You cannot have two masters. Now, I honor, I stand in honor. I don't complain about paying my taxes.
Right.
I have some people who moan, who pledge the allegiance.
They complain about paying unto Caesar.
I think this is the best place in the world to live.
Yeah.
And,
well, and that word for faith could be translated as give your loyal allegiance. It doesn't come through in a lot of our translations. As a pastor for 40 years at Ginghamsburg, you're now the pastor emeritus. You also coach through passionate churches. What are some of the things you want pastors today to keep at the forefront of their mind as they try to make disciples, as they try to reach people, as they try to bring more of heaven to their part of planet Earth?
Well, I think that pastors need to know when you are called by God, it's not our job to try to keep a job. Always kept in my wallet my union card from when I worked in a grocery store.
Yeah.
Because I knew that I could always go back and work in a grocery store. Now, what later I would have done was go back and work in social work, which is what my degree was in.
Oh, is that right? Yeah.
But it reminded me that this was a calling and I didn't have to compromise.
Yeah.
Every year. And I started when I went to Ginghamsburg at age 27. I'm 27. I'm almost dead. I don't have time to play church. And so in 2012, when Obamacare came into effect, I said, I'm not going to say which side of this issue I stand on, but healthcare matters to God. It does. So we got to say, for the poor, uninsured, or whatever, healthcare matters to God. Look at the emphasis Jesus said he sent them out to heal and proclaim the kingdom of God. That's
Mm.
what we're about. You know, I lost 400 people that weekend.
Wow.
Well, I always said, you hope you win 401 the next weekend. But we got to tell the truth.
Yeah. Well, in your heart for the disadvantaged, again, because it's the heart of God, there's Suetonius, the Roman historian, who was so confused by Christians because they were very conservative when it came to sexual ethics and very liberal when it came to loving people. We don't quite fit in either party. And you've had a really amazing work in the Sudan. I would love for you just for a moment to talk about some of what your church has done for some of the least of these on planet Earth.
Well, I see across my wall, I've got pictures of me being in one of the schools
Hmm.
uh, with one of the kids in my lap. We built 190 some schools. And when I talk about water yards, I'm talking about huge facilities, big wells, not like a yard well or whatever. We did water yards that supplied water for like 90,000 people and agricultural projects. I don't know. I remember 5 years before we started in '04, we were engaged for 10 years. I
Hmm.
saw this, I'm into cars, and I saw this BMW ad, and it was, you could lease a BMW. So it was 99, I guess, for 600 and something a month.
Wow.
And then 5 years later, I saw this BMW ad, and across the page, a Sunday page, that up to 1 million people could starve in Sudan. And I said, why do I know so much about Sedans, but
Hmm.
nothing about Sudan?
Wow.
And I went, and God just, so I called United Methodist Committee on Relief and I said, I want to do something in Sudan. They said, we're not there. And I said, what if I can totally fund this thing, but you engineer it? So that's what happened. And some years through other organizations and stuff, we were able to raise 22 million a year. We were
Wow.
involved for through our own church. Through the 10 years, we raised 10 million.
Wow.
And so I did it through Christmas is not your birthday. Whatever you spend on your family, you give an equal amount. And I made 3 trips. One staff member got shot, another got kidnapped.
Goodness.
Um, I finally understood that Abraham story about take your son, your only son.
Oh my
When
goodness.
when my son was 25, he had no relational commitment at the time. He was just getting ready to go to med school, and he's 43 now. So how old are you?
I am 53.
So I wanted him to have this kind of lifetime commitment. And I went to my wife and I said, I believe the Lord wants me to take your son, your only son, into a war zone in Darfur.
Wow.
And it was one of the most incredible experiences
Wow.
out in the middle of desert war zone. And he was my photographer for fun in college. He played 4 years of baseball at the University of Pennsylvania. And
Wow.
for fun, he took photography, some classes. And so he did real good. As a matter of fact, I'm looking at some of his pictures now. Man, we were in some dangerous places. One place we were in, 2 weeks later, 45 people got killed.
Oh, that's
Um,
awful.
he's a surgeon here in Cincinnati right now.
Mm.
But that's where I understand Abraham taking his son,
Yeah.
you know. But I wanted my son to have this. This is what we're about.
Yeah.
This the love of God, and this is what following Jesus, not
That's right.
worshiping Jesus,
Yeah.
following Jesus. It's about.
Bringing Jesus everywhere we go and being willing to go where others aren't willing to go. Well, Mike, I'm so grateful for your ministry all these years. Thank you for taking the time to encourage us as church leaders. And God bless all you're doing.
Well, God bless you, man. It's great to be with you.
Thanks for joining us for the Innovative Church Leaders Podcast. Go to my website, ericbryant.org, for my newsletter and free resources.